Okay, Bertha, oh, excuse me, that's Martha. Martha has announced that the recording is in progress. So this is community dinner at Ian's. We were outside tonight. Last week we were inside and we started this whole melanin, how do humans harvest sunlight? So I'll start off with, we had the question tonight, the request was, and if any of you are watching this recording, please make a comment and I will talk about what you want me to talk about in health. That's kind of why I'm up here. So please, I mean, I'm also wearing a jacket in the summertime. This must be weird for somebody watching this in Utah or the Central Valley. And he's like, why is he wearing a jacket in July? You know, like, this is Santa Cruz, you know? And there's nothing like that whole line. There's nothing like a summer in San Francisco. That was the coldest winter. There, I'll mute that. That's on the recording. That's like some emphasis on my San Francisco comment. So, you know, we were talking earlier. Yeah. So Lisa was talking earlier about, you know, you needing to go inland during the summer here sometimes because the fog, you get light deprivation, you know, and you get a form of seasonal affective disorder. I can speak to that briefly. I believe that we get depressed when we don't have light because we harvest light. We are like, well, what do plants grow towards? The light, right? You can see it right here. Yeah. All these plants, they're growing where? Towards the light. What do you think the human soul's doing? It's growing towards the light. Our astral body, whatever you want to call it, some subtle part of us is literally growing towards the light. And then we don't get the light. We go, I'm getting denied some good stuff. And it's an inner frustration for me. And there's 5 kinds of depression in Chinese medicine. You can have a depression from stifled dreams. You can have a depression from you've got the dream, but you can't get them started. You can have depression from I got them started, but they never play out. You can have depression from the things in my life always come to fruition, and then something bad happens when I'm going to harvest the results. And the last kind of depression is you just can't let go of something, like grief. So there's a lot of kinds of depression. I know because I got a PhD in depression. I probably would be clinically pronounced depressed right now, but I've been meditating 35 years. So the depressed person gets seen throughout the day. That's part of what's happening is we don't wake up. That's my report to all you guys. I spent 15 years in silence as much as I could to find that out for myself. The awakeness that's already awake in us wakes up through us. We don't wake up. Yeah, no, we notice something else wakes up through us. And that's why you always see the people that have the awakenings, that the athletes, when they do something good, there's always Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit. I didn't do shit. Because there's a humility of knowing this isn't mine. Like all my creative insights I get, like me talking now, when you forget you're so into what you're doing, it's not a great moment. Yes. That's why I like being talking up here, because that's what I'm meant to do. And I forget I'm Craig for a while, and there's relief.
Vacation for myself.
You know that slogan, escape to the movies? You know, escape to the movies. So oration or storytelling is an art. And my ancestors did it well because they were the MacLanes in Ireland. And what does lane mean? It means a street. So you got your horseback cubbies or your horseback people, or your people walking along, and you're an innkeeper. What do you got to be able to do? Tell stories, entertainment, dancing, naked ladies, naked men. I don't know. You got to have entertainment. And so when you're telling a good story, I learned this from my brother because he's a Chris Lane, best storyteller in the world. Because the word enchantment or charm or spell partly comes in. The Celtic version of it is you cast an enchantment by your storytelling. Yes. And what happens to me is I found myself one day, like I forgot I was sitting in a chair because I was in the story with my brother. You know what I'm talking about. Escape to the movies. I was in his movie. And then the dog barked or something. Then it was like, I'm back in my body. I'm like, whoa, that was weird. It was like I was out here and now I'm back in here. And that's how awareness works. It can go anywhere if we just let it. But we get this fear of like, I used to have a fear of liftoff. So I'd try these entheogens like DMT or acid, and I'd never hallucinate because I'd be too terrified to just lift off.
Oh, I love it.
And full circle now. So I think that partly what we're looking at is life isn't reading chemistry, first of all. The very premise of what we've been taught is brainwashed. Life doesn't work by chemistry. The cells in our body, we've agreed on this construct, but the cells in our body aren't reading the CD4-5 spike protein receptor. That's not what they're reading. That's our interpretation of the reality that's occurring. Let's be clear about that to start. We don't know shit.
I'm so clear, Craig.
I'm clear that I should be humble. I know enough to be flattened by what I know. Right? So let's start with we don't know shit. And we'll start there, and then we can throw all the bullshit aside and say, here's the elephant in the room, is that we really don't know. And that's how I learned, because as soon as I thought I knew something, life went. You think you know something, huh? What do you know now? Sorry. Humble humility, yes. So this is what I'm drawing from, is full credit for Morley Robbins, MORLEY ROBBINS, of the Root Cause Protocol, RCP Institute, or rcp.com.
And mini beat protocol.
Huh?
Mini beat protocol. He does that too.
He was the magnesium man back in the day, 20 years ago. You hear all these books about magnesium, because magnesium is involved in every reaction of ATP chemistry-wise in our body. So people that have fatigue, you start with magnesium. Get some extra magnesium. But that's why wheatgrass works in some cases, because what's at the center of the chlorophyll molecule? Magnesium. And that's cell magnesium, because it's coming from the inside of the chlorophyll molecule, versus external chlorophyll has to get integrated, right? So when you do lab work, you can actually check your red blood cell magnesium, and you can also check your serum magnesium. One's inside the cell, the red blood cell, and one's out in the serum. So there should be a balance, don't you think? Does anybody ever talk about this stuff? No. If you know Michael McAvoy, he does. This is how I learned some of this stuff, was like these brilliant people that have. The problem is, it's hard to bridge the woo-woo energetic world to the world of hard science. It's just hard to bridge those two, because in the world of science, we don't even really study science anymore. We study dogma and propaganda for the most part.
But like you said, frequency.
Well, so the cells of our body, long story short, then they're reading energies and frequencies, and that's the reality of what's occurring.
Yeah.
And we have this construct called chemistry, and at best, chemistry is a representation of a chosen parameter at a moment in time, at its best.
Okay, one moment.
It's a representation. For example, let's check your red blood cell count.
Okay.
We're gonna draw your blood. Okay, so at 7:32 p.m. West Coast time, I got 1 milliliter of blood drawn from my body. That's the snapshot. It's like a photograph, because now it's dead, right?
Yes.
The minerals inside of our bodies, Steiner makes this argument, Rudolf Steiner, that the iron in our body is much different than the iron we see out in the world. He says we have meteoric iron that lives inside us. I love that metaphor. Ooh, meteoric iron. Yeah, that feels kind of cool. Ooh, I'm as hot as iron. Don't fuck with me. Meteoric. And it's an ego-based element. It's just hot, right? And what happens to your ego? It gets all inflamed and hot, because spirit never gets inflamed. It's always back there chilling, just noticing. You're the noticer that never goes away. It's the same noticing when you were born, it's the same noticing now. If you check into when you're a child and you think, I was aware of everything then, it's still aware of the same stuff now, and you feel it, you kind of go back an octave, so to speak. Like, wow, it's the same awareness. That's never changed. Now there's the entrance to salvation. Is that pointer right there? And light's part of it. That's kind of the segue. So, so vitamin D, if you look at, we're going to start talking about vitamins as processes, because that's the way they used to be talked about 100 years ago. Thank God for these people. And then the chemists came in between 1900 and 1930. The chemists had to interface with the new corrupt lobbies, because they'd taken control of the FDA about 1910. The medical mafia, which was part of the Rockefeller, Rothschild, rich family whole problem that we're still dealing with. Because they've made the world they wanted. The world's not broken. They've made the world for 2,000-3,000 years now, exactly the way they wanted it. And now, but the awakening is happening now. And so part of what we're dealing with is there's this light, that there's more photonic energy available, because the solar system we're in is in what's called the photon zone in the galaxy. I read about this 30 years ago in Barbara Marciniak's book called Earth. And great book. I don't know what kind of claim to fame she has now, but people still remember her. So Yogananda talked about the corny word that they translated out of Hindu was life-tron energy. Like TRON, Tron, that game, plus life. And that's like this photonic energy in it. And there's more of it available. And that's why they dumb down the population more now. So vitamin D is a sunlight filter. It's a measurement of how we filter the sunlight. That's why the melanin, there's a melanin hypothesis that they developed on Green Med Info. Thank you, Sarah G, for posting all that. And so I have it on my Google Drive as part of my exploration of to translate vitamins as chemicals into vitamins as processes. So D is what I call the sunlight filter process. So why would a guy, I had a client last year in Alaska, up in Juneau. I mean, he was high up in Alaska too. So they had like a whole month where there was no light. So to get him ready for that, he was having seasonal affective disorder, 35-year-old man, very, like this guy a lot of mojo. He liked the change of the seasons like that. We have a whole month of light in the summer, right? A whole month of dark. I couldn't deal.
I was there.
Okay, some of you dealt. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. The number one plant, which they call an antidepressant, and there's some growing right in the garden over here, is St. John's wort. Now here's what's a trip. So it's a sunlight plant. That's why it helps a certain type of depression. Seasonal affective disorder. I believe if you took enough St. John's wort throughout the winter, you would do quite well. It's a yellow flower, the color of the sun. Secondly, St. John's wort, when you tincture it up, I'm going to, where's my spastic movements again? Gotta work on that.
Or move the item.
I just get so excited,
You do.
I can't move fast enough. Here's some of the yellow flowers you can still see in here of the St. John's wort.
Oh, yeah.
And if this would have been alcohol, this would have already been extracted, but this is apple cider vinegar. So you can see it's a slower extraction of the active ingredient that is red as blood. Although we don't really realize that our blood's actually blue in here. Our blood is blue in here.
Yeah.
And then it's red when it hits the oxygen in the air.
Right.
So isn't that interesting? You've got a yellow flower, the color of sunlight. And then when you tincture it in oil or acid or alcohol, it turns red. So the active ingredient called hypericin is red. It's a red chemical pigment. So I have 71 grams of St. John's wort flour right now and about 16 ounces of apple cider vinegar.
Would you eat it all? Would you eat or just the
This will get
liquid?
pressed eventually in a month or two. This will get pressed out. And the reason why the jar isn't full, because you don't want this much air in your tincture jars generally because it causes oxidation, is I'm going to continue to fill it as the plant continues to flower. It's very odd to have St. John's wort picking in August because it flowers on June 21st in nature, in the pot. So sunlight, I'll try to stick to the subject for the recording, folks. So St. John's wort we gave him, and then we gave him the Premier Research Labs, their nanized D3 liquid. And I told him to do about 1,000 IUs a day, which was like a couple of drops. And I go, just do 1,000. And then I gave him cod liver oil because cod liver oil has all 27 chemical isomers of D in it. That's right, 27. So you're taking D3, you miss out on D1, D2, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, D9, D10, wow. D11, D12. They're called stereoisomers in chemistry. They're like right-hand, left-handed molecule stuff.
What brand do you like?
So I'm going to finish this. So I gave him a little bit of D3, mainly as a palliative or as like a placebo, just give him a placebo and then he'll feel better. And, you can get 35% result with just placebo in general. That's the way the studies work. So put him in a good frame of mind about it, I don't think there's any value of it. And I wouldn't give it to him now because of what I've learned. But because vitamin D3, when the way they're giving it, it's a hormone. It's the only prescribed hormone over the counter, actually.
Melatonin.
Well, according to the people that know about chemistry more than I do, they say that they haven't addressed the melatonin as a hormone. They've only addressed D3 as a hormone.
Huh.
Yeah. So we could look into that though. I'm open for sure. One of my students, she's our age, but she's a student learning from me, and she brings in stuff like you do, like those like, what about this over here? And it's like, oh, I didn't thought about melatonin. Yeah. It's interesting because I better not go there. But somehow the pineal's tied into all this. And I'll tell you that as my theory of how spirit comes into the body and how the earth goes up out of our body, because there's meridians and acupuncture that actually describe all this, believe it or not. breath. More stimulant. There you go. And you guys on the Zoom call too, if you hear something compelling, you can raise your hand, and this is more discussion based than it is me blabbering on. Alrighty. So D3 is a sunlight filter, and this guy, he finished it off with cod liver oil. Not much. He's only getting about 100 IUs of quote D3 in it, but he was getting the other 26 chemical isomers of D in the cod liver oil. So it turns out, like, you know, the canned mackerels and the herrings and all that, turns out they're high in D3. You know, you get a couple hundred IUs in a serving. So, you know, like a 3-ounce serving. So it's like, oh, I could eat the small ocean fish. They have D in them. That's pretty cool. You can do cod liver oil. But generally what I tell people is, if you're getting seasonal effective and D3 does help you feel better, then you have to understand that you're putting a hormone in your body, and that through Morley's work, I haven't seen this because I haven't done this kind of detailed work, but it's taken him quote 2 years to clear the hormone out of the body of people who are sick with D3 toxicity.
Jeez.
2 years. So if you're going to do it, I'm giving you that disclaimer that you might have something stuck in your body for 2 years. And you know those hormone creams? I've had a lot of clients with that. 2 years minimum getting it out. Every year you're doing it, it's just this, you're sponging it up. And then it stops working because the sponge is full and you get cell resistance to it. You know, like insulin resistance. You can also have thyroid hormone resistance and estrogen resistance and progesterone resistance and testosterone resistance. Nobody just talks about it. That's all.
CBD cream? Is that?
Anytime you're doing something in one spot with a concentration on it, think about it. It's going to turn into a sponge, and then you'll need to move to another spot and let that spot heal.
So keep moving.
Keep moving, you know? Yeah. So you might say to yourself, well, then what is the real sunlight vitamin? Those here in the group have heard it, but they're going to hear it another 100 times before it sinks in, like for me. A is your sunlight vitamin. And the research very clearly shows, which I'm going to go a little bit to a PowerPoint that Morley made. This is going to be full credit to the root cause protocol because this is their material that I'm going to present. And yeah, I highly believe that they have trainings too. I have trainings and they have trainings, but if you want to learn this stuff, you go to Morley, because I'm learning from this guy on this level, because I'm not a chemist. And he said, quote, I spend 2 hours a day at Starbucks drinking a coffee, which is sort of against the philosophy anyway, but he does it because it's the 80-20 rule. We all have our poison we love. He's in there drinking his coffee, and he studies research back into the 1900s of what they were writing about health. Because you have to go before 1950 to find anything original. In my research, you go back to 50, you start seeing this like, wait, he said that in 1945? Wow, they thought they made it up in 85. Oh, no. They borrowed it from this guy in 45. So I haven't seen anything original much past 50 to 60s in my research of nutrition and health. It's pathetic, actually. So between 1890 and 1920, there was like a revolution, like a renaissance of health insights. And most of it was suppressed, of course, by the US government, because it's a terrorist organization called a corporation that we don't know about, but we do now. You know, so let's not go there, though. Sorry, folks. A is what cures anemia, not carotene. A. So let's have a discussion there real quick. Carotene is a water-soluble pigment that plants use to make themselves differentiate, just like flavanols or bioflavonoids. Flavanols are color profiles different plants use to attract their insects. Or color is really more frequency than it is color, too. That's another thing we don't talk about. My macrobiotic teachings in the 90s was all the Taoist thought, and the old Chinese and the old Indians talk about this. Like, what we see as color is actually a frequency, very low frequency or a very high frequency. And then we perceive it as color, but that's not what it is. That's what's cool. We have this agreed upon construct all around us, but it's not, it's an illusion. Every tradition talks about this, that life's an illusion. And the real reality is sort of one octave deeper, is how I perceive it. If you use like music theory has a lot to do with reality, and so does deep mathematical theory has a lot to do with reality. Well, slight digression, but I watched this guy on Maui. The claim was on this health food store. I was on a vacation and I saw this. I looked at the bulletin board for something interesting, and this guy made this claim: I'm going to prove the existence of God with a mathematical formula. I'm like, oh, the audacity. That's something I would do. So I went and there was like 50 people in this room and it's like, it's kind of like a cult, you know, and I'm like, what did I walk into? It's like, oh my God. And I was glued to my seat, about 30 years old, still kind of naive and learning like how life really was. And but I sat with my suspicions and my skepticism and my notepad, and I watched him in the course of a 90-minute talk that was, you know, partly discussion and banter, and partly him back to this big whiteboard. And I saw him prove God in a mathematical, it was just a big whiteboard. He kind of started with an argument and then with math, and then he would, you know, this is like calculus stuff and stuff that most people would like shudder, you know, you're like advanced calculus and trigonometries. And
But you were able to follow it.
I was taught all this because I was going to be an architect. From age 11 till I broke my neck at 21, I was on the architect path.
Okay.
And then when I broke my neck, everything changed. It was like, why am I doing this? But that was because if I didn't break my neck, something else would have happened to open up the center of self-expression. You know, it would have been something else, but that's neither here nor there. Back to the light. So the research that Morley has, I'll go to a screen share now. I believe, let's see, vitamin D seminar. Let's go there. So again, full credit to Morley. This particular PowerPoint appeared in 2020. And it looks like my computer's not acting nice. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so there's a relationship, as he says here on the slide. You guys aren't going to see it over there, but there's a relationship of vitamin A and vitamin D. There's also a vitamin called vitamin F, as in Frank, in this formula. And vitamin K gets a very narrow wrap. Vitamin K actually has a water-soluble and a fat-soluble form. The water-soluble form you see in greens, and then the fat-soluble form you see in grass-fed animal fat. K1, K2, kind of how my colleagues put it. And this chemical derivative they're mixing in with calcium supplements and boron and all that. Don't take it, folks. You could go lick the sidewalk and do better, you know? If you want boron, take borax.
Yeah.
It's about half a penny per serving. You know, you're putting 1 teaspoon of borax powder in a quart of water, and you're taking a teaspoon of that quart of water, which gives you 3 milligrams of boron, and that's going to cost you like, I mean, a teaspoon of borax alone is like 2 cents, you know.
And it's sweet.
And it's proven too. Walter Last, you know, the LAST, the borax conspiracy. If you want to, anybody out there wants to check out Walter Last and the borax conspiracy, Paul Robbins and Juji Tyroller sent that to me 20 years ago. Walter Last, the borax, and you know, I'm always a conspiracy guy. Like, ooh, let's read about the borax conspiracy. You know, I thought it was laundry stuff. You know, and what? It's pure. It's like 99.97% pure sodium tetraborate. Tetra is 6, right? Tetra is 6, 7. So it's 1 boron molecule and 6 sodiums around it. Sodium tetraborate.
Okay.
Or maybe it's tetraborate. No, 1 sodium and 6 borons. So it's mainly 99.97 that. And there's, you know, because they're mining it out in the mountains by Lodi. Like you go in the mountains outside of Lodi, there's borax farms. You go in there, they mine it out of the earth. They don't even have to really do much with it because it comes out that pure. And I'm like, why would I not want to do that? It's coming out of the earth.
It's great for your
No,
liver.
take my chemical form, take my pharmaceutical form, much better. Because your body's an automaton. It's like a computer. It doesn't have an intelligence of its own. No, it's not given that much credit. We might have to actually start thinking about things. All right. So what they saw, sorry, folks, if you're watching this for the first time, this is just the way it is with me. There it is. William Davis, MD. The problem is that vitamin D is not really a vitamin. It's a hormone, exclamation mark. That's on the PowerPoint here. So they were curing anemia back in the old studies. When you look at the graph, like, you know, anemia was defined as low hemoglobin in this case. There's different forms of anemia. You can have a low red blood cell count anemia. You can have an iron deficient anemia. You can have a low hemoglobin anemia. That's what's called low MCV, which is your mean corpuscular volume. That's there's a name for that, but I forgot the name. It's another type of anemia. It's basically not enough B6, folic acid, and B12. And that shows up on lab work as high homocysteine levels also. and your red blood cell density and the red blood cell volume. So it's MCV for one and MCHC is the other. And one is the red blood cell density and the red blood cell volume. And if those numbers are off, then there's another kind of anemia there.
Hmm.
And it's generally a B vitamin deficiency anemia.
You can tell that by reading my
Blood work, yeah.
blood
Work. And then there's other forms of anemia we won't go into, like the Chinese call it blood deficiency. So blood deficiency is not necessarily anemia, but blood deficiency is a big umbrella, and anemia could be part of it. You could have yin deficient anemia also, but that's like low red blood cell count if you're wanting to translate it. But we're not going to do that. So they would give doses of iron, and on the graph that Morley was showing on, I don't know if it's this webinar or another one, but they would show, it's leaving these slides up for the people to watch if they're watching the recording. This is really good stuff. And again, I am fully selling and believing in the root cause protocol. Otherwise I would not be presenting this material and giving them credit, because this guy is really doing good work. And I email them all the time, like, you guys are rocking, you know. I just don't want to be, I don't want to learn their system and pay $5,000 to be a part of it, you know, because I'm doing my own teaching, you know. It's like, hey, let's collaborate. So I'll collaborate from my set. They're that good. And on this chart, you know, like the classic X and Y graph chart, you know, you've all seen them. So that this is amount and then over time. So it shows, you know, hemoglobin dropping, and then they give iron and the hemoglobin goes up for about a month. You keep giving the same amount of iron and then hemoglobin goes back to where it was. So you get a little temporary, and I could tell people why, but that's called, it's an adaptation that the body does. And then the body gets, it's like having coffee for the first time, and then your body sort of adapts to it, and you need more caffeine to make the same dose. That's why they have so much iron in the supplements these days.
But that's not good for you, right?
This is an adaptation thing, yeah, because we only need 1 milligram of iron a day, according to Morley and the root cause protocol people. So with vitamin A, though, with retinol, so this is back to the original topic, was carotenes are water soluble and vitamin A is fat soluble. That's what they call retinol, retinol. And so to convert the carotene to the vitamin A, you need your liver working well, and probably there's a version of the liver in every cell. That's what it's called, fractal universe thing. So whatever that is in the cell probably also needs to be working some version of the liver. And you're making something water soluble, fat soluble. So one of the key elements in that process is actually phosphorus. That's the main component of lecithin and your phospholipids. Think phosphorus, phospholipids. The key there is phosphorus and lipid, phosphorus and fat. Isn't that cool? So in our body then, and that's why lecithin is so helpful for high cholesterol, because cholesterol is a waxy molecule. If you're looking at like on one end of the spectrum, man, I'm digressing big time. So just remember that carotene, to finish that, then I'll go into the fat part. Fuck. There's so much out there that nobody knows. So carotenes require the body to convert it into fat. And so you need phosphorus in your diet to be able to do that. I believe that there is some mutability in the body, transmutation it's called. We know that silicon can be converted to calcium in animals' guts because they don't eat calcium-rich foods, birds and cows. They eat silica-rich foods. And there's a book about this called Biological Transmutations. And it talks about sodium, potassium can be transmuted to each other, and silicon to calcium. And there's a bunch of weird ones that I never would have thought of. But I won't digress that far. So I need you guys to keep me in check. I'll keep going. So to get it done, that word jaundice is the key word that will enlighten people as to, you know, what's really going on here. Jaundice is nothing more than the orange carotenes building up in the skin. Why? Because the guy that's working behind the liver counter has too many people taking a number. He can't work fast enough for the workload. You know, when you're in the store and the guy that behind the cash register, the slow one, there's always a big line. That's what happens with the carotenes. They just get lined up. And so if the liver was working faster, that wouldn't happen. But the carrot juice people, it always happens to them. I don't know how many times I've seen the hands turn orange of people that do a lot of carrot juice. Well, that's this jaundice thing, and that's related to what I'm talking about. The body can't convert it fast enough to A. And then if you take too much A in synthetic form, you can overdose on vitamin A, but not the whole food form. I drive them away. No, I'm just, Jim, everybody likes to be free. So that's why I don't try to control people. You know, like,
Okay.
just be free to do what you want to do. It doesn't bother me at all. So the point was that vitamin A, when you get enough of those carotenes to convert to vitamin A, there's just a lot. I'm going to pick on the vegans for a minute. There's a lot of vegans out there that don't know what they're doing. And they end up coming to me late. Sometimes I've had 2 women in the last few years that had stopped menstruating at age 20 and they were vegan. So what's the first question I ask them, you think? How do you build blood? So that's a question related to that. If you're in the audience, a guy like me, what would be the first question I would ask a young 20-year-old vegan why she's not menstruating as far as her diet? Do you want to take a guess?
Not eating enough meat.
No, because there was a vegan. My question was, are you eating enough protein? And that's like a question mark. They don't even know what protein is. These 2 ladies, and they kind of knew, like, oh, spirulina and avocados. And I'm like, first of all, avocados have no protein. They are fat. Be clear about that. There's like 3 grams of protein in an avocado. And in my world, you need 70% of your body weight of protein per day in grams of protein. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you need 140 grams of protein a day. If you weigh 100 pounds, you need 70 grams. That's just the way it works. If you don't get it, then you can't make neurotransmitters, you can't make immune cells, you can't make new blood, and you can't make new bone. So what happens, people get old and they don't realize what the fuck they've done.
Yeah.
That's why these vegan people, like, you got to get enough of this stuff in your body, or you've got to be a transmuter. You got to be able to take sunlight and these elements and do it yourself in your body. And those people are freaking rare on the planet, but some can. So to repeat,
Protein.
you don't get enough protein, which is what I'm saying. It's based on the formula of your body weight, 70% of. Now, whether it's vegan protein, animal protein, I don't care. I'm just telling you what the facts are. The facts are that people generally get deficient in one area. People that can't sleep because they're not getting enough high quality protein. Because you make neurotransmitters like, you know, GABA, and serotonin, and all that stuff. You make them out of protein.
What do you think about amino acid supplements?
No, short term, yeah. But long term, no. You're going to cause that white blood cell increase I was talking about earlier. Or you weren't part of that. When we get too much toxic protein in our body, because when we take synthetic amino acids or synthetic magnesiums or whatnot, there's these left and right-handed molecules. That's why you see L-tryptophan out there and L-glutamine. Well, there's a D version. That's levulo-rotated and dextro-rotated are the 2 words. How complicated this gets. But this is the world we live in. It's 3-dimensional. They presented this 2-dimensional chemistry universe to us. That's a fiction. So our cells aren't reading the CD4- blah, 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 blah receptor. They don't give a F about it. They're reading frequencies, and I'm trying to describe what's actually going on here, you know? So you don't get enough protein in your diet, then here's the list again. You can see it on your serum protein. There's something called your albumin and your globulin. So your think immunoglobulins, which are some of your types of immune cells. If that's low, that's my first question is, are you eating enough protein? So you're not going to make enough immune cells. You're not going to make enough red blood cells. Oh, and by the way, the red blood cells and the white blood cells, they start in the same place, which is the bone marrow. And then they're differentiated after they are born. That's not well talked about either.
Wow.
That's why the thymus gland is connected with the T cell thing. T means thymus. Thymus trained. Those lymphocytes are trained in the thymus. Nobody talks about that much. T cell, thymus. And then they tell us as adults, they brainwash and say our thymus shrinks from a walnut to this tiny little pea. That's not true. That's bullshit. It degenerates in a lot of people because they don't take care of themselves. But there's a whole thing with the chakra. There's like a 4.5 chakra, some people say right here and they're on the thymus. That's not well spoken about either, but I digress. Okay. So I'm going to get all the way back to the women. So the 20-year-olds was, are you getting enough protein? And we do a little diet intake, talking about their diet. You know, it's like, you're not getting enough. How do you know you're not getting enough? Go to Chronometer app. I'm going to plug Chronometer. I expect a full commission for this. If I got big enough, I would call them up and say, hey, look, I got 1,000 views and I just plugged you guys, but I only got 50 views. So CR, not CHR, CRO Chrono Meter, METER, chronometer.com on the computer and the Chronometer app on the iPhone or the Android. And then it's so good. Like the standard process supplements are in this program. Grass-fed, everything from Campbell's soup to grass-fed. It's the most comprehensive, and it's free. If you get the app and the extra bonuses, you know, you pay a little money, you get all this other stuff. But so everybody thinks they're getting enough protein or isn't, because I haven't plugged their numbers in. See, you're not getting enough. And it's this magnesium thing. If you're having trouble with sleeping or with your nerves, start with magnesium or at low energy. And then the next thing would be your protein. And if you're getting enough protein, not enough of it's raw. That's why the lalata thing and eating the vegans who do 100% raw, that's how they can make it in our climate. I know our winters aren't that bad, you know, here. So you could be a vegan here year round if you had a really, well, if you were eating if I was eating as a vegan in the winter here, I would need constant cocoa butter, palm oil, you know, I would need avocados every hour so my body burns fat for heat.
Do you have a blanket for it?
No, I'm fine. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
I'm warm. You could actually use my jacket. Just let me know. I got tons of stuff. All right. So they weren't getting enough protein, and you know, spirulinas and blah blah blahs and like blah blah blah. No, you're going to go back to here's what you're going to have to do. So I start to plug in stuff. Okay, you'll do eggs. Great. Raw dairy? Yeah, I'll do some cheese. And okay, great. Yogurt, kefir? Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, so I had one covered pretty quick, and then she was even willing to do chicken, no, excuse me, fish and maybe shellfish too. So I was like, oh, golden. So she was bleeding in 2.5 months. I mean, she went through two possible cycles, and 2.5 months later, she started bleeding again. She's like, what the fuck, Craig? I'm like, what did I tell you? And then the other one took her about 3 months, and she wouldn't do meat, but she did all the dairy stuff. And I just said, even if you have to do vegan, just do a vegan protein every meal. And that's like the highest concentrated vegan proteins I've seen in the whole form are those Go Raw watermelon seeds. Were golden. They were so high in protein, but I don't see them anymore.
Where did they go?
That Go Raw brand.
Yeah.
You see those the watermelon seeds anymore?
Not lately, no.
I see the sunflower seeds, but not the watermelon seeds. And oh, it's so disappointing. There was like 11 grams of protein in 2 tablespoons. That's the bomb, you know, because they're soaked and sprouted with Celtic salt, no less. So it's like, fuck, these people are rocking.
Should we do our own?
You can do your own watermelon seeds. These were the special edible watermelon seeds, not the black ones. You know, they grow the watermelons fucking for the seeds. You know, they don't grow them for the fruit.
You could buy watermelon seeds.
You could, yeah, that's a good one. Hemp protein, hemp seeds, fuck, great vegan protein. Flax seeds, way underrated protein source, like excellent. Chia, not so good. Chia is mostly the soluble fiber stuff with some really good qualities that build stamina though, because it takes so long to process it. And then psyllium, not so much. And the other seeds, not so great. Nuts are mostly fat. You really can't rely on nuts for protein. You just can't get enough. You can't eat. That's why people eat so many nuts, because they know they need more protein. They just can't get enough, and then your liver gets all fucked up.
That's what happened to me. I overeat nuts because I just can't stop eating them.
Because your body knows there's something good in there, right? And then not enough. If people will go to whey protein, like the non-hydrolyzed wheys, there's some really good ones out there. And if the vegan will even go so far, some of these collagen ones, I would prefer they went to standard process and got their raw bone meal stuff, because you know, if it's cooked, the minerals are precipitated out of the protein complexes, and it's just not good. Your body has to kind of rebuild all that when it doesn't necessarily have to, and that's a big burden on the pancreas and the enzyme systems. But I digress.
Did you say bone meal?
Yeah, standard process has a supplement called Calcifood, and it comes in these wafers, and it's raw bone meal, including the meninges in the brain and all that stuff. It's like cool stuff.
Standard process is online.
On my website, healthalchemy.com, folks. You can buy it on my website. I never plug myself, so there we go.
And that's a good protein source.
Well, it's raw, you know, and so I'm going to digress, because this is what the storytelling part of it.
Sorry about that. I'm trying to figure this
I'll
out.
mute you if I need to. Okay, there we go. All right, so if you're when I do the recording later, when I post it on YouTube, I always try to remember all the things I talked about, and it's like, just watch the fucking thing, you know. So 100 years ago in the 20s, they used to call arthritis cooked food disease.
Okay.
You heard this one before?
No.
If you've watched my videos long enough, I probably said it at least a few times a year. So cooked food disease. So that was a whole John Harvey Kellogg and the spas, and you see people with the belts around them where they're shaking and stuff. Used to show that stuff, you know. Well, what they were finding out was the American diet. They'd gone more to this industrial age, and they started having more and more refined food. So there was more of these degenerative illnesses appearing. But I was just telling the crowd earlier that Weston Price discovered in the 20s and 30s, traveling to 17 native cultures who had no cavities in their teeth and perfect facial structure and no bone deformities at all. And then within one generation of eating the white man's foods, 27 cavities per 100 teeth, unable to reproduce, more birth defects and facial deformities. Within one generation and that's what they were seeing between 1900 and 1930. They were seeing this complete degeneration of the human genome, basically, through this, because the white flour stuff then was even more dangerous. They had this thing called oleo, O-L-E-O, and it was the predecessor to margarine. It was fucking gray.
Yeah.
Imagine putting something gray when you're used to the golden butter. You're putting this gray thing on your toast. And it smelled bad.
Yeah.
And people just said, we're not doing this. And there was a bunch of diabetes cases from it. And you could go into the history, and it's ugly. Don't go down the rabbit hole, folks, unless you're ready to get some serious heartache. All right, back to the recording here. I'm going to try to take this all the way back again. Oh, yeah, we were taking this back to 100 years ago. So cooked food disease. It goes back to the more you process food, the simple formula is close to nature, fresh, and organic. So the more you process food, like protein, so you get that clear egg white, right? You open the egg up and there's a clear egg white. And as soon as you cook it, it turns white. Why? Why does that egg white turn from clear to white when you put it on the heat?
It gets denatured.
It's denatured and damaged. It's damaged.
So eat it raw.
No, egg whites, there's a lot of evidence that you need to cook your egg whites, but the yolk needs to be raw. If your gut is weak, there's this whole biotin deficiency, which can come in from too many raw egg whites, which if you're doing 20 or 30 raw egg whites a day, that's what we're talking about, to put it in context. So if you're having a Rocky like shake, please make sure you can digest those egg whites. Because there's also something called a lysozyme in the egg white. Lyso, Lysozyme, and that can also digest your gut lining. Yeah, lysozyme.
Lyso, lyso.
Zyme, Z-Y-M-E. There was a ulcerative colitis book written in 1953, no less, by Philip Norman, MD, and he had this whole lysozyme hypothesis with colitis. Some people they were digesting their own gut by eating the wrong foods, basically. And I think there's a lot of credence to that theory. But I digress. And so this cooked food disease was, a lot of arthritic pain starts as reflexes, because if you look at the intestines here, there's a reflex along here that goes up to the brain cells. There's a reflex over here that goes over to this part of the back. There's a reflex down here that goes down to the leg. So there's a corresponding body part for the entire intestines everywhere in the body. So if that part gets ulcerated or stressed or inflamed, then the nerve channel to that reflexive organ, we call it, will start to act up. So the first arthritic pains are often from pH lockout from cooked meat, causes this tissue poison called guanidine to build up. And guanidine is very alkaline, which is why the pain gets worse when they're asleep or at rest. Because when metabolism slows down, we're making less acid, right? Because acid's a byproduct of metabolism. When metabolism goes down, the body becomes more alkaline. And so these alkaline tissue poisons is why a lot of people that become vegans when they were meat eaters, if they would change to raw meat, they would feel just as good. If they're a protein type, that's the way they should do it. If they're more of a carbohydrate type with an Ecuadorian, an equator type of landscape as ancestry, then yeah, and they're a blood type A, then we say, yeah, go on over to the vegetarian proteins. That's fine. But if they're not drawn to the strong, heavy, rich, the strong carb types, if you mention cream to them, they want to barf. You mention bacon fat, they want to barf. You mention steak fat, chicken fat, they just look at you like you're crazy. And the protein type is just the opposite. Like I would ask for the bacon fat, everybody was cutting off their bacon. I would ask for the steak fat, chicken fat as a kid. I would have half a stick of butter on my baked potato. Would cut off half of the stick. My family would be mortified, like, that's a pure protein type right there.
Okay.
So that type needs fat for energy. They don't burn carbohydrates well. They oxidize the carbohydrates too fast because they're in parasympathetic dominance. So when you go as deep as I have, it's just all second nature now, but you guys are parasympathetic, what? You've lost me again, So parasympathetic system is rest and repair, sympathetic or fight or flight. Sympathetic is fight or flight. So there's no digestion going on when you're in sympathetic dominance. None. There's no digestive secretions. And what are most people doing? They're running around in sympathetic dominance, fight or flight all day. And they wonder why their osteoporosis at age 50. Because you build your bones from protein and minerals. And if you have low stomach acid, you don't absorb protein and minerals. So over 20 years, you're borrowing and borrowing and borrowing because you got to buffer those acid bloodstream with the alkaline bones. And then there's very few people like me teaching because they all get killed. You know, I'm not joking. I've seen too many of my teachers go down, you know. That's why I like being small, kind of, you know. They don't know who I am, you know. Like poor Zach Bush, man, he got, man, did a number on him. Cowan had to move out of the Bay Area. Tom Cowan had to move out of the Bay Area.
I know.
He just ran for the hills because he didn't want to get murdered.
Right.
The thing is, they got satellites everywhere. If they want to wipe somebody out, they'll do it in 5 seconds. I know that for a fact because my military friends and special forces friends tell me that. You know, I said they're listening to us right now. If I was that big, they'd be like, "What's Craig saying? I'll get the satellite in on him." Remember that Will Smith movie where he was running around the whole, trying to get away, and they kept zeroing in on the satellites and finding him?
Yeah,
that was really good. And that's kind of how I feel now. Like, oh, there's no escape. Here I am. You know, walk around naked. I don't care.
You might be a targeted individual.
Oh, I've been talking shit since age 15.
Yeah.
I shaved my head.
well,
I know I'm
probably
targeted.
Don't have that big a following that you a threat.
I'm that big in my own mind.
No, but I'm just saying that would be to your advantage.
I'm very entertaining for myself. Like it's no different when nobody's here. It's just the same, basically. Same shit show.
Yeah, you talk to your plants.
Did the plant just yell at me? All right, back to the light. We would go back to all the way back. So you got the arthritis thing. The way to cure arthritis is to eat more raw foods, and particularly raw protein. Raw grass-fed butter is what Price called the Wilson factor, W-L-Z-E-N. And chemically, I believe the Wilson factor is a combination of vitamins A, D, E, and F plus K, to further confuse it.
What if you don't do well with dairy? Would that be the oil butter oil or whatever?
Ghee would be a possibility too, because you get all the dairy. It's the dairy sugar and the dairy protein that's purified out of ghee. So then you get the butyric acid, which, here's what I'm telling people. If you don't get some dairy fat in your body, you're not feeding your microbes very well. Because in your stool tests, because I study this stuff, there's something they call your butyrate levels. They measure down a bunch of different butyrates, you know, hydroxybutyrate and 25 boronic acid butyrate, and, you know, whatever the names are. I'm just making up funny names. So I look at that and I go, and then knowing what I know chemically about butter, well, the short chain fat that mostly butter is made of is called butyric acid. And when you add an alkaline salt to an acid, it changes the acid word to ATE. So butyric acid becomes butyrate. I'm thinking to myself, holy shit. So our gut bugs, they eat butter fat and they shit it out. And I'm thinking about, what is the one commonality on the planet that every human civilization probably had? They were probably doing dairy fat, camel milk, horse milk, pig milk, goat milk, cow milk, yak milk, lizard milk. The latest one on the, if you haven't seen this yet, folks, go to YouTube or the web. They're now selling cockroach milk.
No.
I saw it on a meme the other night on YouTube.
Unreal.
Cockroach milk as a superfood.
Oh.
You're killing me. Cockroach milk, folks. Hey, it's high in vitamin A.
Does it look black?
Cockroach milk. So every human civilization that Price saw, like, there were no vegan long-lived cultures that Price studied. There were a number, I think out of the 17, I think 8 of them were vegetarian. So guess what they were doing though? Dairy fat, dairy protein, and eggs. So I had a hard time with dairy for a while myself. And then I tell anybody there's always hope, because you can believe yourself into it. I believed myself into being able to process it.
So goat milk.
And I worked on my liver and my lip, because you can't digest fat unless your lymphatic system is operating.
Yeah.
So because when you eat food, most of the food goes through the portal veins into the liver, but the fat goes into the lymphatic system via what's called a lacteal. And so fat ends up, that's why it's people, there's more heart attacks after a fat rich meal, is because all the fat goes up, it gets dumped out next to the heart, the superior subclavian vein or something. And then that fat goes right into the bloodstream. And what does fat do to fluid streams? It thickens it. And that's called your triglycerides they measure in your blood.
So but you're saying we need it.
So I'm just saying that people that can't digest dairy fat, it's just the context of this dairy thing.
Okay.
Because I went through sensitivities throughout my life and mentioned.
How about ghee?
So back to the dairy fat.
Ghee?
So the lymph system. So what I did was, let's see, what time is it? I had a meal down in when I was in this corporate job at age 25, and I had this meal ticket, and they put me on this trip for the weekend. And I remember I had 2 dinners because I was such a foodie. And then I woke up at 3 a.m. with that feeling, like nothing had moved, and it was just gurgling around in there, the 2 meals. And generally I just vomited at that point, but it went a few more hours, and then I vomited, and I had to be at this seminar in the morning at 8. And there was a lot of fat in that meal. So I knew that I needed more fat in my diet, but I couldn't digest fat. I was in this quandary because all I have left is protein and carbs. There's only 3 calorie sources. Alcohol is not a viable option. It's a calorie source, but it's not, sustaining. So I'm like, fuck, I was a carb addict. I can't go back to carbs, and I can't eat that much protein. So what's left? I got to figure out how I'm going to make my fat digestion better, because that's what I'm meant to do. So it's part of that gut work that I was mentioning to you. And then there was a whole liver component work of just dredging and coffee enemas. I don't know, probably 5,000 coffee enemas. Just so many coffee enemas over and over. It's a great solvent for the portal circulation. And I could talk to you in private about it.
I do that already, but not consistently.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend that did them every day for 2 years, because it generates this well-being. Because of the flow of waste starts moving out. It's like the garbage truck finally starts moving, and there's this like, I feel so much better because my crap is moving. And there's not this sort of stagnation, Chinese call it. I'm gonna take it all the way back now. So we kind of got the arthritis thing, eat more cooked food. That's the long and the short of arthritis is just eat more raw protein. And if you want proof of it, go to wewanttolive.com. That's the work of Agenus, or you can go to the Weston Price book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Maybe Jean got bored. She dropped out. Oh, wait, there's a chat here. Night, Jean. Yeah, it's late there. I was flattered that she was even on at all.
Where is she?
In Mexico.
Okay.
Just doing a little journey around Mexico. So this thing about back to the retinol. I mean, the retinol curing vitamin A deficient, like blood deficiency, anemia. So the graph that if you're watching the recording, you'll see the graph here. So you see this thing go way up after taking retinol. The hemoglobin levels will go way up. So a hemoglobin-based anemia is cured with vitamin A, not iron. And the data on these graphs show that. I'm trying to find it on this thing, but so we're going to moving into this vitamin D thing now. So if A is your sunlight vitamin, then D is your sunlight filter. So imagine you're wearing sunglasses. Now, why is wearing sunglasses a lot in the sun a bad idea? Anybody think?
Because you absorb vitamin D through your eyes.
No, it's melatonin pineal thing.
That too, but you do absorb some vitamin D through your eyes.
The sun tells your body to produce melatonin.
Melanin.
Thank you.
But think melatonin. Think MSH, if you want to look it up. Here's the one that Michael McAvoy threw to me years ago. This little chart. MSH is melanocyte stimulating hormone. I thought I knew a lot about hormones. I'm like, you ever heard of that? Melanocyte stimulating hormone? That's what tells the cells to produce melanin. But it's also tied in with Epstein-Barr and Candida, turns out. Now, isn't that interesting? That's the thing that they presented on Green Med Info of fungus have a way of processing light into nutrition called melanin. So there's an external source of melanin in mushrooms. And they found out that this stored sunlight in the form of melanin in mushrooms was helping people in some ways. And one of the higher sources was chaga mushroom, which a lot of people like. So I was like, oh, that's a good reason to have chaga right there. You get more melanin. And if you want access, I'm not going to publicly post this article, but I have an article that I collected all the green med info and a bunch of NCBI studies is on my Google Drive called Melanin, MSH, and melanocytes, sunlight energy and energy.
Melanocytes.
Melanocytes, yeah. The spelling's on here on the, you'll probably want to watch this later. So there's a long document here. I haven't edited it much, 23 pages to be exact. And it just goes on and on about all these theories, melanin's mysterious properties. And I mean, it's just amazing. I'm gonna go back to the Morley thing here. I digress too much. So on the slideshow, he's talking about the allopathic solutions for the C word, which I'm not going to even mention the C phenomena.
Yeah.
So high dose D, zinc, HCQ, vaccines, ascorbic acid, and what he says right here, what do these all have in common? They kill bioavailable copper. It gets made into that ceruloplasmin I was talking about earlier. Okay, so sunlight, D leaps tall buildings is an all narrative. Sunlight stimulates immune cells throughout the body. And there's a slide here that I'll try and zoom in, folks, but this is a pretty small font. Let's see what I can do. There we go. So it stimulates your macrophages, your Th17 cells, your Th1 cells, your dendrite cells, your beta cells, your Th2 cells, and your something here I can't read, your Treg cells. So vitamin sunlight triggers all that, but not 25 hydroxy, it's 125 hydroxy. So vitamin D creates a fast acting yet controlled immune response, is what the slide says here. That's interesting. That's why it works so well in sometimes acute situations. But he goes into some slides here. So D, what D does long-term, it may be in this slideshow, but there's other ones that you can go to the root cause protocol for and join their system. But I have my own resources and some of his, but I can't publicly make it available. It's just private for my people. And that's D3 ends up interfering with this copper metabolism, which interferes with the mitochondria. And there's not one mitochondria per cell. If you're not hip to that yet, there can be up to 20,000 to 100,000 mitochondria per cell. And they can multiply fast too, if they need to make more energy. But you have to believe it. See, there's that thing about
Frequency.
the fractal universe. If the captain of the ship, because we're mostly bugs, there's more bugs than there's our own cells. So if the captain of the ship is in a low state of energy, guess what? The shipmates are in a low state of energy too. So you want to be in that higher state of energy, because when you're in what's called a higher aerobic metabolism at this mitochondria level, you literally make 50 times more energy than if you're in anaerobic metabolism. So there's this thing with the citric acid cycle and the Krebs cycle. I won't go into all that. That occurs in the mitochondria. So D interferes with that. And it makes the body, what you want is to burn energy clean without a lot of exhaust, right? Have any of you ever seen pure ethanol burned versus gasoline? Like burned in a bowl and right in front of you?
No, we haven't.
So ethanol is 100% combustible. So when I saw the guy throw the match on the bowl of ethanol, there's this beautiful blue flame, no smoke, none, just this beautiful blue flame. Then he throws the match on the gasoline, which is only 35% combustible, black ash everywhere. That's the non-combustible part, polluting the environment. They knew about this when they made cars, and they still chose oil. So all the stuff in the atmosphere, I mean, this is like crimes against humanity stuff. It never got proven. So the Rockefellers are directly responsible for this with their Standard Oil and all this promotion of it. Henry Ford knew about electric cars, and they knew about ethanol too. And we could have had Tesla Energy too, but JP Morgan won that battle, And so, we're 100 years behind, folks. We literally could have been where we are 100 years ago, but nobody wants to talk about that. So there's some data here about the D. So if you're interfering with that, that means your mitochondrial metabolism has more exhaust. And that presents as high cholesterol, folks. There's your cholesterol thing right there. Because cholesterol is a wax. And that was kind of the fat thing I was saying earlier, is that polyunsaturated fats are very liquid, very liquidy. And saturated fats are very hard. Same temperature, right? Then the next level out in the hydrocarbon world are waxes, sterols, cholesterol. And then resins are the next level out. They're all made of the same thing. They're just different Lego formulas: carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in various forms. And then the furthest out is plastic.
Ooh.
Plastic. Yeah. So when the body, you see high cholesterol in a person, the first thing you want to look at is this metabolism. Is like, so it's where yang's overpowering yin. The fire is consuming the log too much. That's a good metaphor to kind of help people understand what's occurring. You want the water to control the fire in the body. You don't want the other thing. And that's why Americans are yin deficient and they die sooner than they need to. I mean, I read the obituary of a man who lived in the mountains of China in Huashan, the old ancient temple. He had died in 1933 and he was 320 something years old, documented. That's the potential what the human can be, but we're pretty dumbed down, as I said.
50 years old. Jeez.
We're dying at 50 to 80, and 20-year-olds are getting arthritis now.
Yeah.
The adult diseases are appearing in teenagers and stuff. I'm seeing it. And hemoglobin levels are been plummeting the last 10 years. Because I've been doing lab work for about 10, 11 years. And in general, the hemoglobin levels have been falling. Pretty scary, but they don't want to talk about it again. So D3 taken in the form. Now, does that mean not to get sunlight? So I tell people, like, I have clients that are in the sun a lot and they're still low D3 storage form. So I go, let's go what Morley taught me a few years ago, which was that you can measure the active form of D in your blood. It's called calcitriol. Oh. Yeah. Why aren't we testing for that? Big dragonfly, isn't it? Big old one. So what Morley tells people to do is, if you're going to get your 25 hydroxy vitamin D levels tested, then they won't pay for this medically, because that's part of the brain. They brainwash the doctors, right? The people at the top are the conspiracy people. The doctor are just ignorant. And I'm sorry, doctors, most of you are poorly trained and you're too cocky to even ask and say, I don't know. Yes. So let's start there. Back to, we don't know shit. That's where I start. And so they, I shouldn't digress because I lose my tangent. Calcitriol. So calcitriol is the active form of how calcium is utilized in the body, and 25 hydroxy D is this storage form of D that, to me, the people at the top sent everybody over there on this wild goose chase. So Morley says, check your 25 hydroxy and compare it to your active form. So if your active form is too high, then guess what? We can get vitamin D toxicity, folks. It's called sunstroke. That's what sunstroke is. When I'm in the sun too long, I get tired. That's why I know I need to get out of the sun. Does have anybody here in the sun too long to get tired?
Oh yeah.
Because the body can't process the hormone that fast.
Yes.
The body can't process the hormone that fast. So I just get tired. I used to use it quite skillfully in college. I would go to the beach and pass out for a few hours in the sun. Now I take Cataplex F, the vitamin F concentrate from Standard Process, and I haven't used an oral sunscreen in 15 years, and I'm not tired in the sun anymore. Because vitamin F does the opposite action as D. And our ancestors found ways to use vitamin F. One of the ways was soaking barley and then drinking the barley water when they're out in the sun all day. That was their
vitamin F.
That's right.
No, what is vitamin F?
That's right. You're asking. Gee, somebody's finally asking. F used to be part of the E complex. Okay. And they couldn't synthesize it in the lab out of chemicals, so they deemed it a non-vitamin, and we never heard about it. Okay. That's all, We can't make it from cheap soybeans or refined sugar, like ascorbic acid can be made in China from ascorbic acid in one enzymatic step, because ascorbic acid and glucose are only one enzyme different than each other. That's why most animals can make their own vitamin C. And that's not the whole story with C, though. There's tyrosinase in C, there's copper in C, there's bioflavonoids in C, there's rutin in C, there's ascorbic acid in C. You kind of start getting the point, We've been dumbed down so badly. Just take your ascorbic acid and then it'll cure your cancer. Duh! Go get some green juice from the... Oh yeah, I had picked a leaf earlier. So I told people, vitamin C, when you see a plant and it has a new leaf, like I showed the people here today, Carrie saw it, that's vitamin C. That leaf did not exist yesterday. Isn't that a marvel? I mean, if you're not astonished that That's vitamin C. It's this water soluble sunlight captured in the water. Like salt used to be called Soleil, S-O-L, sol. So a lot of our salts are captured crystalline sunlight. Sol, salary. They used to pay people in salt. Man, we are so dumbed down. I have to find this stuff out. I'm like, rabbit hole after rabbit hole. Any one thing, not a big deal, but they've undermined. There's like turds everywhere now. You got to really walk carefully in life.
Gopher holes.
Gopher holes, yeah. So D3, if I can find it in the PowerPoint here, you were watching, you could see here. And as you can see, there's an increase in ferritin levels when you take too much D3. So what is ferritin on your labs? It's your stored iron.
Oh, ferritin.
So the more D3 you take, the higher your ferritin levels go. In general, it says it right here on the study. Gee, folks, what are we doing? So in this PowerPoint here, he talks about 3 key metabolites: cathephyllocydin, B defenses, TLR co-receptor CD4. Don't know what that means, but vitamin D has a whole something to do with it. Okay, what does he say here? The role of fat-soluble A and D in the pathogenesis of influenza, a new perspective. And they come to the conclusion that liver function with alterations in vitamin A metabolism. Oh, there's no mention of D in this NCBI study article, but vitamin A is mentioned. Liver problems, retinol metabolism. So when you have low storage D, what he would tell you is that means you have inflammation, probably affecting your liver. So this PowerPoint kind of goes through some of the problems of why vitamin A used to be talked about a lot more. Vitamin A and C, standard process as a supplement for the immune system called Cataplex AC. It's a vitamin A and C whole food concentrate. And guess where the vitamin A is coming from? Liver. It ain't no vegan company. Raw liver. Immune system response elements that may be regulated by retinoids, T lymphocyte function, cytotoxic T lymphocytes, and beta sites, and a bunch of other stuff here, as you can see on the PowerPoint. Vitamin A, not D. So let's see. What is the metabolic dynamic that is causing reduced D production and storage D and active D? What does this imply about the mineral status of the liver and the kidney? Does your doctor begin to understand this, he says. So Morley's he has quite some interesting stuff here. Okay, active D stimulates the synthesis of metallothionein. Why is this a problem? This result suggests that there is significant flexibility in the structural requirements for metallothionein in function in copper detoxification. And there's your copper connection that he makes for you there. Metallothionein made D causes, which interferes with copper detoxification. Wow.
Too much D.
Metallothionein binds up copper 1,000 times more than even zinc, he says. Well, I just saw what that thing was again.
I think there might be a bat flash.
Ooh, cool. That's cool.
I saw that.
Okay, so he's talking about magnesium deficiency and high tissue iron here, and that causes vascular calcification. So there's your arteriosclerosis. And they found no clinical benefit at all when the storage vitamin D was anywhere above 21. And I'm not going to go into these slides, it's too much, but this is the evidence that people wanted to see about. There's a ferroxidase, which is the iron metabolism in the mitochondria called ferroxidase. It's spelled here in the PowerPoint. So there's a lot of evidence, and see hormone D is an antagonist for something that we need. So if you go through these slides, which any of you can do, you can freeze frame this thing and look at this. And it's just some scary evidence of why you don't want to be taking, there's a ceruloplasmin one.
I think you convinced us.
Yeah, I mean, these are critical reviews in major credible organizations, So I'm gonna, you guys have any questions?
Liver pills. Is that a good substitute? You do?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question here. What about raw liver pills? And so this is the recorded material. Generally, when you remove the water from anything, the spirit leaves it, which is why alcohol is called spirits, right? So I capture the spirit of my plants in the alcohol. That's why I do tinctures. So you lose some of that spirit, but that may not be a bad thing because Standard Process has been doing miracles with their dehydrated liver capsules and their products. because all their B vitamins and all their major products line starts with liver. They must get a lot of freaking livers, that company. Boy, I tell you. And kidney, and they sell kidney, adrenal, livers. They've got some brain products, some really cool stuff out there. And then there's ancestral supplements, which we're plugging also. They got some good stuff. So generally, results wise, people still get good results. Yeah. I don't prefer it myself, but I do it myself because I'm not going to eat as much liver as I need to eat. It's just not going to happen. I'm just honest. And you same thing. But I just bought some water buffalo liver. I'm going to plug Miller's Organic Farm in Pennsylvania, Bird in the Hand, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Amos, for your fight. There was a SWAT team raid 2 weeks ago. You have most of your constituents' full support, Amos. I'm behind you 100%. Stand behind your people. So I bought 2 pounds of water buffalo liver. I took a pound out. It was packaged up and cut it up as thin as I could, and then I put it in. This has been my recipe favorites too, as a variation of my teriyaki sauce plus mustard and lemon would basically be what it is. So this variation tonight was a lemon juice, prepared mustard, 2 strong flavors, right? Because the liver is a strong flavor. And as a chef, I'm a trained chef. You want to balance out a strong flavor with another strong flavor to be realistic, people are going to eat it. And then there's a little bit of salt, some Celtic flower of the ocean salt. I don't have the package here. And soy sauce, real soy sauce, SHOYU, shoyu, Nama shoyu, which is a raw soy sauce by Osawa brand, OHSAWA. Staff of Life sells it, New Leaf sells it. They import that stuff, but that's an old family tradition there. And I was trained in like Kikkoman and Sanjay and all that. That's crap. That's not a real soy sauce. A real soy sauce in Japanese is SHOYU, Nama meaning raw, shoyu, Nama shoyu, Osawa brand. So I have some of that in with it. And that's when people have wheat allergies and soy allergies to soy sauce or MSG allergies, because the stuff's made like shit. It's processed and they add alcohol to it to preserve it. In a real shoyu, it'll last a lifetime at room temperature, unpreserved. Yeah, I got stuff over here. It's been in the sun and everything. It's fine. And then there's the coconut aminos are in there because that sweetens up the saltiness and sort of the pungency of the soy sauce and the sourness of the lemon. That coconut aminos rounds out everything really nicely. Because I don't use Bragg's anymore because Bragg's has MSG in it and they don't tell you that in their processing of it.
We told them.
Oh, I got hung up on, when they hung up on me 15, 20 years ago, I was done with them. Like, you don't hang up on somebody who's asking sincerely about your products. That's just not okay. Uh-oh, something went dark here. It's getting dark here, so my screen's going to start going out. I'll go to a screen share and finish up that way.
What's the best? Well, I guess you're talking about it, but how do you get 100 grams of protein a day?
So a can of sardines or the kipper snacks or the anchovies generally gets you about 20 to 25. And then your veggies and your other adjunct foods get you another 5 or 10, usually generally per meal. So I tell people to shoot for 30 grams 3 times a day if they're at that weight scale.
How about salmon? Salmon?
Generally all meat and fish, a hand size, a 4-ounce portion is generally around 30 grams of protein.
Okay.
Then if you're in the vegan world, like cheese, a 4-ounce size of cheese, which is a lot of cheese, that's going to get you, I think 2 ounces of cheese has about 15, 20 grams. There's about 6 grams of protein per egg, kind of large egg. Extra large would be more like 7 grams, on your way to size there. Yogurt and kefir, you're looking at per cup, maybe at most 10 milligrams or 10 grams of protein. Avocado is only 3 milligrams for, small to medium avocado. So don't rely on avocados or nuts for protein because you're not going to get it from them. But flax seeds, the watermelon seeds, not pumpkin seeds, no, not sunflower, but flax and hemp and watermelon seeds, thumbs up, high protein source.
What about protein powders?
Yeah, I was asked that earlier. So the thing about protein powders, what I saw this client who was doing a hydrolyzed whey protein. And you didn't hear of this case earlier. No. She was trying to get pregnant. She finally got pregnant outside of my jurisdiction because we've been trying for 4 or 5 years to get her pregnant. But I kept telling her proteins weren't enough because her serum protein needs to be 7.0 or higher. Hers is 6.5 to 6.3. And she kept miscarrying. I'm like, you're miscarrying because you're not You don't have enough amino acid pool in your body to build new tissue. And your body is rejecting the fetus because that's what it's telling you. It's intelligent, saying, I don't have the resources, therefore expel. And because the body's very intelligent. And so she finally did it. And so she had left me for a few years, and then she came back. She was mad about this lab work she had, and she knew that she had been shortchanged for $400 from a naturopath. You pay this naturopath $400 to this lab work, and the only thing insightful she got was her cholesterol was too high at 220, which wasn't too high. I was livid when I told her this. I go, why didn't you come back to me? I go, you get the same thing for $100, and I'll give you 10 insights that I see already. In 5 minutes, I already had 10 insights. I'm like, you're a naturopath that ripped you off. You should get your money back. I go, this is pathetic for $400. So for $100, I gave her 100 times more, and her lymphocyte count was too high. And if you look it up in the book, there's a lot of reasons why someone's lymphocyte might be high. And generally it's cooked, refined foods. And in this case, refined protein from the hydrolyzed whey. So generally my teachers in Oriental medicine were all to a T against protein powders because they're damaged inherently to some degree. You can keep them raw. So a non-hydrolyzed whey seems to be okay. The raw hemp proteins seem to be okay. I think some of those sprouted pea and quinoa protein products could be okay if they're, if they're sprouted and not damaged when they're ground into a powder.
What about hydrolyzed collagen?
Anything hydrolyzed is damage. Hydrolysis.
Okay.
Yeah, not good. Non-hydrolyzed collagen, yes. But it's just long-term, you're going to develop a white blood cell response to it because you have all those wrong-handed molecules I was mentioning earlier. And to the body, that's like the wrong frequency. Because remember, our cells aren't reading that. They're reading like, there's something off here. Because the wrong-handed molecules are life's trump card. People that can't tolerate fragrances. Because essential oil fragrances have all the right handed molecules, but the fragrances have the wrong. And something in the body is going, it's a good thing to be allergic like that to poison. Because to them, it's like, this is poison. Because it's all those wrong-handed molecules. So that's life's trump card to eliminate synthetic stuff. And what do you think we're going through now with this viral thing? The body, viruses are the body cells' exhaled waste called exosomes, and they get reassembled by some dark frequency forces around us into these other entities. And some of these jabs, they're saying there's, quote, self-replicating nanoprobes in them. That sounds terrifying to me. It sounds like Borg freaking Star Trek stuff. I don't want self-replicating nanoprobes inside my body. Who's programming them? And at what rate? So I watch Star Trek all the time, and there's all this stuff about this in Star Trek. It's almost like Star Trek was a prep show to get us ready for all this. Carrie, you had a question.
So like raw meat. So like if you have a steak and you just sear it, like rare, is the sear on the outside gonna be a problem?
Well, you have to be realistic with your life, because I'm a 30-year practitioner, and you can have the best laid plans for a client, but if they won't comply with it, it's the worst plan. So compliance is very important. So for my own compliance, yes, I sear meat, and sometimes I do it medium rare, and I just pay the price. So the two things that deactivate guanidine from cooked meat is apple cider vinegar and chlorophyll, by the way.
Okay, that's good to know.
Lots of people have joint pain, especially around bedtime, and they know that they've had a bunch of cooked meat. Have a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and a little bit of water before you go to bed, and it'll deactivate some of that alkaline tissue pain caused by guanidine.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Royal Lee was writing about this in the 40s and the 50s, unfortunately, and guanidine just didn't make the press. If you look at it on, like, if you do a Google search on it now, you get all these chemical formulas and chemistries and synthetic versions of it, and it's like it's all a smokescreen from this really important molecule from cooked meat, and they're not thinking about it.
What was the other thing besides apple cider vinegar that you said?
Chlorophyll. So green juices, any green juice, anything green will help. That's why we eat greens with barbecue. You have a salad, right? The salad helps you not have pain.
So how do you, this is on vitamin D now. How do you check your levels? Is it necessary to check your levels?
I don't check them.
Okay.
I don't encourage my clients to either. But if they come to me with a panic about their D3 levels, I tell them, so your numbers go back to normal. It happens. People have 20 or something, and then they take D3, 10,000 IUs for 6 months, and then it goes back up to 60, right?
Yeah.
Well, great. You have great numbers. Has anything really changed in your health? No. So it's like taking aspirin for a headache. The high levels of D3 aren't curing anything. It's just palliative to get the number higher. Oh, great, your numbers are higher. Yay. But for me, I haven't seen any health outcome from it. A few depressed people, it helped. But you could take cod liver oil and go into a sunlight booth just as easily. And like I have a full spectrum light bulb that cost me $12 for one. But you can buy full spectrum light bulbs, and get some light that way. I got one in my office there. It's great. I love it. Yeah. So there's other solutions because light has, again, 27 forms of this D, and the D3 has one. So, and it takes people from the Morley's work 2 years to clear out this hormone where they're feeling better finally. I'm going to listen to these guys where the money's not involved, because there's a lot of money involved. And guess what D used to be made out of? Irradiated sheep fat.
Ooh.
Yeah, radiated sheep lanolin. That's what we used to make D. Yeah, I got radiation. I got radiated fat. That's my D. Cool. They're lying, and everyone's believing it because they've got this rigged education system with their rigged NCBI and NIH and all that, and you got to navigate your way around because there's a lot of rabbit holes, a lot of lies, a lot of deceit, because they don't want us to figure out our health because they can't make money on us. Because I'll end with this, folks. Robert Mendelssohn, MD, wrote a book in the 70s. He retired at age 55 as an MD because, quote, they're using hospitals as experimentation on people. The nurses already know it. So he retired early because he was so disgusted. And he wrote a book called Confessions of a Medical Heretic. I just love this man. And there's a quote in the book. If you want to take away from the book, here's my favorite quote from the book. If modern medicine was to disappear off the face of the earth, 90% of all illness would disappear with it. It's a quote from one of their own. The nurses all know this, because they're the ones actually running the hospitals. Yep, well, now what did Ian called it? There's these new people. They're like assistants from the AI. Hospitalist. Yeah, Ian had a friend in the hospital from cancer, and the hospitalist was telling him, well, the AI has this protocol here, and this protocol here, and Ian went, no, my friend's a human being, and I'm going to be his advocate here. No, we're not doing that AI protocol. And his friend's still alive because he did that. The hospitalist is a new bureaucracy figure that interfaces you, so the hospital can make more money on you dying with COVID.
Absolutely. 3,000.
I heard it was 33,000 per diagnosis. So there's a diagnosis code for it. There's a treatment code and a diagnosis code for it. Whether you die with or from COVID doesn't matter. It's a statistical anomaly. And the flu disappeared last year. Oh, yeah. There's no flu anymore. It's all COVID. Oh, I said the C word. So when you say something, folks, you give it more power. So don't mention the word because it doesn't exist.
Monkeypox.
Doesn't exist, It's called shingles. It's a form of herpes simplex, and it's a natural byproduct of a toxic jab. I'll tell you how it is, and I don't care if you kill me because I'd rather have that freedom to say what I want. Damn.
Oh, I've got blood A negative. What does that mean? Not that you have to get on.
You're a low stomach acid type. Right off the bat. Type A's produce less stomach acid than the other 3 blood types. That's the data.
What does it mean?
It means you don't digest protein and minerals as well as the other blood types.
No, I don't.
In general, not you, type A's.
Oh, gotcha.
You can, the easy starts apple cider vinegar with meals, bitters before a meal. So you can buy Swedish bitters or you can buy Craig's Backyard bitters. Take the bitters before the meal. They'll kind of activate everything. I have apple cider vinegar based bitters. So you get them both in the same product, which is great.
Great.
I have some of that. Remind me. You can also take stomach acid. It's called betaine hydrochloride. You can take Pepsin, or you can take it all in one. That's Zypan, Z-Y-P-A-N for standard process. I still take Zypan. I go on and off of it, but I don't want to be 90 and have weak bones and protein problems that I could have solved by just taking the fucking supplement, And I mean that fucking part because it's emphasis, I don't want to look back and go, why didn't I just spend a little more money on my health insurance, which was my diet? I haven't taken a medication in any form in 30 years, folks.
Yep.
No painkillers, no aspirin, nothing, because that's fucking evil. I saw what was going on when I was 26. Like, I'm done. I'm not ever taking it. No, it's 31 years now. Not ever taking a medication for any reason. And I've had torn rotator cuffs and 2 hernias and a lot of injuries, a concussion that almost wiped me out 10 years ago. Not one painkiller. You know why? Because there's what they don't want you to know is those opium poppies. That's the best painkiller on the planet. It's called milk of the poppy, our ancestors. And that's why it's demonized. But poppy is the medicine for the caregiver that can't stop caring. It is not the medicine for a narcissist. The opium dens, you get numb. I did the other night. I chopped a few of these poppy heads, made tea with some other herbs, and it was a good 2.5 hours. I didn't give a fuck about anything. And it was such a relief.
Can we have a party?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could. We could have a
That could
Sunday
be a
gathering. All have
I
poppy tea
knew
together.
it.
Oh, yeah.
We need a break. We're
Yeah, I know.
serious.
Yeah. Somebody's yelling at you. Somebody's yelling at you. Yeah, keep yelling. I don't care.
Vacation,
Sure.
yeah, you think I'm a little grumpy? Well, just hang in there, baby.
All right. Well, any more questions, you guys? I should probably end this. It's dark. You can't even see me. The lighting isn't working. Thanks, you guys. These go on to YouTube and they get about 20 to 50 views, depending on how compelling it is. But I'm going to edit this one a little bit more than I normally would because there's a lot of gaps and some visual requests I want to honor. Thank you, folks. For anybody who watches on YouTube here, I think you're going to be able to see me here. No, that's really a bummer.
Yeah.
So I'll put my background on for a minute here. There we go. Oh, it's not working. So thanks for watching, you guys. And Marilyn, Carrie, thanks for being on the call. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's such a great discussion. Every week, come on back, folks. Record.